Heat has come out with its first expansion, Heavy Rain. We talked about this a while ago on the channel. We had some details then, but now we have it sitting here in front of us. But we want to answer the question for you. Do you need Heat Heavy Rain? Ryan, what's your answer?
Sure. So I'll say...
Thank you, goodbye.
For myself, I'm a huge Heat fan. So I've played Heat enough to basically exhaust the game. I've played every map multiple times.
Exhaust. I see what you did there.
I didn't, but I'm glad I did. I've basically exhausted every piece of content. I've seen all the cards, played all the maps, done all the different tournaments, or championships. So for me, just having any more Heat content that I can mix in is an instant buy. So I would say if you're a Heat fan and you are still consistently enjoying the game, you're going to want this. It does some new things. It adds some new cards. But it does just give you more of the game that you already love.
Yeah, it's more Heat first and foremost. There are some new things we want to talk about. And we'll also talk about whether or not, if there's someone who kind of likes Heat, whether or not this is kind of like a necessary expansion. Sure. I think even you would say it's not necessary.
This is definitely not. So every once in a while, the game comes along and you play the game and you go, okay, the game is fine. And then the expansion comes along and you go, wow, it's become a top 10 game.
I'll never play without this.
Right. Heat was already a top 10 game for me. Anyway, I don't think it needed more, but having more players, having some of these new mechanics, and even just introducing new maps, I think it is enough to kind of extend the lifespan of Heat and get people that liked Heat back into it. It's an excuse for some people to get Heat back on the table, but for people like me, who I just played Heat a couple weeks ago, it's good to have more maps.
More options.
More options.
It's giving you more options.
More players.
It does include some new mechanics that are specific to these two new maps. It
Yeah.
also includes some cards that you can kind of mix in with, all of the cards from the base game. And in fact, even the rules suggest that there's one new mechanic that you could go back onto the original boards and draw on the original boards to include in those mechanics.
So they really do say draw? I did not see them say draw that on the original board.
Literally says you can draw for the aggressive legends. You can give the legends now a little bit of boost so they're a lot more aggressive, and they'll go through two
they'll go through two turns.
Because 2 turns basically.
If you're using the AI legend system in the original game, there are a few places where the corners are really tight and the AI can actually get kind of stuck on a corner, and then you can get a pretty significant advantage on them. However, in these maps, there's actually new corner types called Chicanes. That are very, very tight turns, and you'll see one right here on the map. It's 2 2s right next to each other. So that's a very difficult new type of corner for you to navigate because you have to go past 2 speed checks, which means you're potentially paying double the Heat when you go through them. But that could really stop up the AI as well. And now they have those special marks that allow them to go through both at once.
Yeah, and you'll notice that the Mexico side has a chicane here and a bigger chicane over here on this corner. I'm going to try to flip the board for you so you can see the Japan side. The Japan side, if I can arrange it here, this one also has a chicane right here, but just one.
Yeah.
Also, cool feature, although it doesn't really change the game. I love the fact that it has a bridge going over.
Yeah.
None of the other courses have anything like that,
No, this is brand new. You go under and over. So one more thing, though, about these chicanes, which is interesting, too, for somebody like me that adds in all the content. If you use weather, if you're using the weather module, the weather affects both of these turn numbers. So if you had a weather effect that was, for example, increasing your heat spend, it's doing it twice now, one for each one of those turns. I mean, this is a crazy turn to try to make here. This is very interesting.
That turn in particular is crazy, not just because what Ryan said, but it also has this standing water.
True.
There's standing water here, here on the Japan side of the map. The standing water is going to have basically an ongoing effect too. It's going to cost an additional heat to downshift.
Right.
Meaning if you even downshift 1 gear, it costs 1 heat.
Yeah, it's coming right out of this 4-point turn, and then it's an interesting mechanic.
Are you salivating over using this in your next game?
I'm excited to play Japan for sure. I think that those flooded spaces are very, very interesting.
Are you going to do your Memorial Day thing?
Yeah, the Indy 500 celebration with the Heat Championship. And speaking of that, of course, this also does come with a new championship for those who actually played through the championship mode, which gives you like 4 maps to play in a row. They've introduced a new championship. This is 1964, which introduces the Japan and Mexico mixed into some of the older maps as well.
It also comes with, if you're really into the tournament or championship, you can have another player now.
Yeah,
That brings
that's
it up
cool.
to what, 6?
7.
7?
I believe.
I think it brings it up to a lot of players.
Yeah.
But one more, it's got the orange car, which is near and dear to my heart. I love orange color.
We don't see that a ton.
No, you don't see it a ton, but if you're going to have this many players, you're going to go through the colors on the spectrum.
And of course, because you're having a new player, it comes with a new deck of cards for that color. It comes with some new stress cards, some new heat cards, so that you can add in. Obviously, when you play with an extra player, you are going to be adding more heat and more stress cards into the mix of the game as you're setting it up.
Yeah, and then lastly, there's a few other things. I have some sponsorship cards here. They're all E-Mercury Air Systems. The big thing that these do, as well as some of the upgrades, the garage cards, is the super cooldown. This is going to allow you, and we did talk about this in our other piece, but this is going to allow you to actually remove heat from your discard pile, which is a big difference.
Basically, what everyone tries to do on their first game when
accidentally.
They're playing it actually lets you do that, which is a crazy combo. I mean, the ability to spend your heat in the next turn, just immediately take it out of your discard pile, not having to wait for it to cycle all the way through your deck back into your hand, that can be incredibly powerful. Of course, these new garage cards, the air intakes, a lot of them that have that super cooldown also do have some negative effects like trashing cards as well to kind of balance the positive you're getting for that super cooldown ability.
But that is basically what you've got going on in the Heat Heavy Rain expansion. Again, we think if you're a fan of Heat, I think everyone's going to probably get this if Heat's still something that hits their table every once in a while. Or like you said, maybe it hasn't hit their table in a while, and this is just what they need to get it to the table. With that all said, I think you'd agree, while not necessary, it's probably going to be significantly desired by anyone who's enjoyed the game.
Yeah, I think for players that are just kind of into Heat or that really haven't even exhausted what the base game has to offer, they might not be...
You did it again, exhausted.
Has not fully... I don't even know another word to use for that. Has not fully realized the potential of what he has to offer. But for people that are just casually into it, I mean, I think it makes a nice upgrade. It's definitely not one that you need to, race out and buy if you're not a big Heat fan. But if you are...
Race out and buy? I see what you're doing.
I can't stop it. I can't brake hard enough. That one was on purpose.
I'm going to put the emergency brakes on. If you have any more questions about it, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer whatever we can. Ryan's going to get it played here pretty soon. Absolutely. We haven't got it played yet, but we'll have answers for you. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.
Bye.